Max Mara Spring 2026 highlights modern classic summer wardrobe for women. Introduction. Welcome to Alara Fashion Style, where I love exploring runway collections that combine timeless elegance with modern practicality. Today, I want to dive into the Max Mara Spring 2026 highlights and why I think this collection offers one of the strongest examples of a modern classic summer wardrobe for women. From the first look on the runway, I felt a quiet confidence that immediately stood apart from trend-heavy fashion presentations this season. What I find interesting is how Max Mara consistently proves that refinement can feel more powerful than dramatic spectacle. A collection built on confidence. The entire runway carried a calm sense of confidence that felt incredibly intentional. I noticed how the tailoring never tried too hard to appear powerful, which actually made it more convincing. In my experience, fashion becomes more elegant when it feels effortless instead of overly calculated. I think Max Mara understands that true sophistication often comes from restraint rather than excess. The warmth of the color palette. One of the most memorable elements was the beautiful color palette woven throughout the collection. I saw creamy whites, warm sand tones, soft olive shades, caramel browns, and subtle earthy neutrals that reflected light beautifully. What I find fascinating is that these understated colors created emotional warmth without relying on loud seasonal trends. Unlike most spring collections that chase vibrant statements, this runway embraced softness and serenity. Why the tailoring felt modern. The tailoring immediately stood out because it looked relaxed instead of rigid. I think modern women are increasingly drawn toward clothing that offers structure without discomfort, and this collection captured that perfectly. The blazers, trousers, and layered pieces moved naturally while still maintaining elegance and precision. In my experience, tailoring works best when it supports confidence instead of restricting movement. balance between luxury and ease. One thing I appreciated deeply was the balance between luxury and wearability. Many luxury collections feel visually impressive, but emotionally distant from real life. Yet Max Mara avoided that completely. What I find interesting is how effortless the outfits appeared despite the obvious craftsmanship involved. Have you ever noticed that the most luxurious clothing often looks the least complicated? The power of relaxed silhouettes. Relaxed silhouettes played a major role throughout the runway presentation. I noticed oversized blazers, fluid trousers, and softly draped outerwear styled with remarkable control and sophistication. Unlike careless oversized trends that sometimes feel messy, these proportions looked balanced and intentional. I think the relaxed tailoring made the collection feel emotionally comforting, as well as visually elegant. How fabrics created movement. The fabrics added extraordinary depth to the collection. In my experience, beautiful materials can elevate even the simplest silhouette, and Max Mara clearly understood that principle. The lightweight linens, flowing cotton blends, and fluid textures created graceful movement on the runway. What surprised me most was how alive every outfit felt simply because of the way the fabrics responded to motion. Minimalism that feels human. Minimalism can sometimes feel cold or detached, but this collection felt deeply human and approachable. I think the reason it worked so well was because every look still carried softness and emotion beneath the clean tailoring. What I find fascinating is that simplicity often requires more discipline and confidence than dramatic fashion statements. Unlike overstyled collections that demand immediate attention, these looks slowly revealed their beauty over time. the woman behind the wardrobe. As I watched the show, I kept imagining the woman these clothes were designed for. She felt confident, intelligent, independent, and completely comfortable in her own identity. In my experience, the strongest fashion collections are the ones that reflect real emotional experiences rather than fantasy characters. I think Max Mara created a wardrobe that respects the complexity of modern women instead of reducing them to trends. Quiet luxury without trying too hard. The idea of quiet luxury continues to dominate fashion conversations, but I think Max Mara approached it in a genuinely authentic way. There were no oversized logos, exaggerated accessories, or desperate attempts to appear exclusive. What I find interesting is that confidence becomes far more believable when it does not constantly seek validation. Unlike flashy collections designed for social media impact, this runway trusted subtlety completely. Why layering worked beautifully. Layering became one of the strongest styling techniques throughout the collection. I noticed sleeveless tailoring paired with flowing coats and lightweight separates that added dimension without heaviness. In my experience, layering during warmer seasons only works when the fabrics remain breathable and fluid. I think Max Mara achieved that balance beautifully by keeping every combination visually light and elegant. Accessories that never overpowered. The accessories stayed understated, and honestly, I think that was one of the smartest styling decisions. Instead of distracting from the clothing, the bags and shoes quietly supported the overall aesthetic. What surprised me was how complete every outfit still felt despite the restrained accessories. Sometimes fashion becomes stronger when designers know exactly when to stop adding more. The emotional impact of neutral fashion. Neutral fashion has a very different emotional effect compared to trend-driven color stories. I noticed how the earthy tones created calmness and sophistication throughout the runway. What I find fascinating is that neutral wardrobes often appear more luxurious because they highlight texture, tailoring, and movement instead of visual distraction. In my experience, women return to neutral pieces repeatedly because they feel timeless and emotionally grounding. The elegance of simplicity. One reason this collection stayed with me emotionally is because it celebrated simplicity without making it feel plain. I think simplicity only succeeds when every detail is carefully considered, and Max Mara clearly paid attention to proportion, fabric, and silhouette. The clean lines created an effortless elegance that felt both modern and timeless. What about you? Do you prefer minimalist wardrobes, or are you drawn to bold statement fashion instead? Fashion designed for real life. Many runway collections remain disconnected from everyday reality, but this one felt surprisingly practical. I could easily imagine these outfits working for travel, professional settings, summer evenings, or relaxed city days. In my experience, women appreciate fashion more when they can realistically incorporate it into their own lifestyle. I think Max Mara succeeded because the collection balanced aspiration with functionality. The unexpected softness of structure. One surprising detail was how soft the structured pieces appeared throughout the runway. Tailored jackets flowed naturally instead of looking rigid or severe. What I find interesting is that softness can often communicate confidence more effectively than aggressive power dressing. Unlike old-fashioned ideas of authority in fashion, this collection suggested strength through ease and composure. Why timeless wardrobes matter again. Fashion trends move faster than ever, which is why timeless wardrobes suddenly feel more relevant today. I think many women are becoming more intentional about investing in pieces that remain elegant beyond one season. In my experience, collections focused on longevity often feel more emotionally satisfying than trend-focused fashion. What surprised me is how refreshing classic sophistication feels in such a chaotic fashion environment. The mood of the runway presentation. The atmosphere of the presentation itself enhanced the emotional impact of the collection. The soft lighting, measured pacing, and restrained styling created a calm sense of luxury throughout the show. I think runway presentations become more memorable when they create emotion instead of simply displaying products. What I find fascinating is that quiet runway moments often stay in my mind longer than dramatic performances. The looks I keep remembering. Several looks continued replaying in my mind long after the show ended. The monochromatic tailoring, flowing trousers, and lightweight layering combinations felt sophisticated yet completely wearable. In my experience, the strongest runway collections inspire real styling ideas rather than remaining fantasy concepts. I think Max Mara delivered exactly that kind of inspiration with remarkable consistency. Conclusion. As I reflect on the Max Mara Spring 2026 highlights, I keep returning to the idea that true elegance rarely needs to demand attention. I think this collection succeeded because it embraced timeless tailoring, emotional sophistication, and modern classic summer dressing with genuine confidence. What about you? Which element stood out most to you, the relaxed tailoring, the neutral palette, or the effortless layering? If you enjoyed this runway review and want more fashion analysis, luxury style inspiration, and elegant wardrobe ideas, Make sure to subscribe to Alara Fashion Style and join me again for the next conversation.